Alright, how y'all doing? This is a continuation of my last post, which was about the MedHold unit and what it's like for a soldier who's getting medically boarded out of the Army due to injuries. My last thing I was speaking about is how they ask soldiers. Again, my name's Daniel. You can go into my other videos to get my update. This is like my 12th or 15th video, and I'm tired of giving my military history. So look it up. It's in my videos under soldier talks about his 2 Iraq deployments, and you can get my my military history. You know, I joined when I was 17. I was in Iraq 27 days after my 18th birthday. I have Purple Heart. I had 2 deployments for 2.5 years. But what I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to finish up by discussing on how, as of my second deployment, which ended in 2007, early 2007, how they ask soldiers of whether or not they have mental health problems. So these are soldiers who have PTSD, who are, you know, the soldiers that are going on and committing suicide. These are those soldiers. So how is the Army making sure that these soldiers that are killing themselves aren't slipping through their fingers? I mean, they're going to make it as easy as possible, right? They're not going to make it, you know, they're going to make it, you know, so they're not ashamed of it, that it's easy for them to seek help. Wrong. What they do is they get, whenever you get back from a deployment, you are always grouped into a company for about the first week or 2 weeks. You have to come back and you have to get all your paperwork done. You have to, I mean, just all the normal Army stuff that you would have to do, you know, get your weapons turned in and all that stuff, get all these new briefings about don't beat your wife, and it's just 2 weeks of hell. When I got back from my first deployment, we got an automatic 4 days off, and then we came back, and all the cherries, new guys that didn't deploy, did all that for us. When we got back from our second deployment, we didn't get any days off. We got back literally on a Thursday at around 8 or 8:30 at night. We had to be at work at 4:30 the next day. And we didn't get a day off for a week and a half. So we had been deployed for 14 months, almost 15, and we get back and they won't even give us a day off. So this is how we're treating the soldiers. So what they do is during these briefings, they get your company, a company size for an infantry brigade is anywhere from 120 to 200, depending on your attached troops, like mechanics and cooks and stuff like that. And what they would do is they would group them all into a briefing room, and you would have 120 to 200 of your buddies here, and then they would ask you blatantly over the microphone, does any soldiers feel like they have any mental health issues, or they feel that they have post-traumatic stress syndrome and that they would like to talk to someone and get help? And they would say, all right, well, raise your hand, and everybody that raised your hand, go stand in the corner. And they would expect, and of course, you know, you could kind of tell when they said raise their hand. I kind of looked around, and you would see a fairly large group of people kind of start to raise their hand, but within a second they had all put it down, because, you know, that's taboo. You don't want your buddies to know in the Army that you're not feeling right. That's like one of those things, you know. That's almost like a homophobe thing. They would expect soldiers, and of course they did this on purpose to minimize the amount of people that were claiming post-traumatic stress syndrome. But then the few soldiers, I mean, out of 200, some of these people are on their 3rd and 4th deployments. Multiple soldiers have Purple Hearts who have killed people, you know, seen their buddies get killed, and out of our entire company, only 2 people were willing to go over there and stand up. Because, I mean, of course they did that on purpose. So it just sickens me that they are willing to gamble a soldier committing suicide so that they can keep their unit numbers up. They are willing to do that. They will sacrifice that. And not only will they sacrifice that, they'll do it right after a soldier has just gotten back from Iraq. So this is whenever a soldier has already proven his moxie. You know, he's gone in there, he's earned his merit badge, he's been deployed. It was my second deployment, and they do this. And if you do claim post-traumatic stress syndrome, you are treated like shit immediately. Your life is hell. I talked about it more on my last video if you want to look into it, but they make your life a living hell. And I'll say it again, soldiers committing suicide when they get back have far more to do with how the military treated them, not than the actual Iraq, but it has far more to do with that aspect of it than you think. Far more. And I mean, I made it through 2 tours in Iraq, man, and my med board process took a year and a half, and it was the worst experience of my life, because I was already dealing with all the stuff I had to deal with from Iraq. You know, I was injured, so I already had that, and I had multiple head injuries from IED blasts, and I had 4 concussions in 4 months, and I had all that to deal with, and not only that, but I was going into work for 12 to 16-hour work days every single day and just being treated like shit, nonstop smoking, just because I claimed post-traumatic stress syndrome. And I hadn't even claimed it yet. This was after my med board process already started. Another thing that I was talking about was about stop loss. You want to know how many soldiers? You know what stop loss is? Stop loss is soldiers that had already completed their contract. They had signed up, like me, I'd signed up for 5 years of my original enlistment, and they had, some of them already completed 1, 2, 3, and some of them even completed 4 tours to Afghanistan and Iraq. And the Army said no. Like, say they were getting deployed in 3 months, their unit, and they were supposed to get out in a week. Their Army said no. You're going to get deployed with us, and there's nothing you can do about it. And not only is there nothing you can do about it, but you are still, if you refuse or cop an attitude, they will demote you, still make you go. And here's the thing, even if you have a good attitude about it, you don't get them in trouble, you don't get paid anymore. So not is the Army not only breaking your contract, but they're not giving you any more money for doing it. So, and I'm going to ask why that's important. Because, and you think, well, how many soldiers got stop loss? 100, a couple thousand? As of 2009 in March, it was 120,000 troops. 120,000. Mind you, who made the decision to stop loss? Cheney and Bush. 2 men. Cheney had 5 deferments. 5 times his country sent him his draft order to go to war, and 5 times he got out of it. And yet, him and Bush who was AWOL during his little stint at Texas Air National Guard, he was AWOL during war. And then they go and send 120,000 soldiers who had already gone to war and served to go again because they didn't want to do a draft. That's how hard it was on troops over there. And you can imagine how thin we were spread. And that's where the mental stuff comes in, because we weren't working at full capacity. We were over there, took over an entire country, and people think like every time we went outside the wire in Baghdad that we had, like, you know, tanks and shit. No, man. We only had 2 to 3 Humvees. So, another thing about stop loss, I'm going to miss it again, is what they would do is if your unit was getting deployed within 4 to 5 months and you were getting out before then, or you were getting out within the first 3 to 4 months or any time during that deployment, really. So if you were supposed to get out within a year to a year and a half time frame in the Army, they would tell you, all right, guys, you're about to get stop loss. If you're getting out within this year and a half, you're going to get stop lossed. But here's the deal. And they would lie. And how I know this was a lie is because I had buddies up at Brigade, as well as buddies in Division at Fort Campbell, as well as I talked to dudes at Fort Hood, Fort Lewis while we were in Iraq, and they said the Army was all doing the same thing. Is they would come in and tell the soldiers, look, you're going to get stop lossed, and we're going to force you to serve an extra year and a half to 2 years in the Army. And most of it's going to be in Iraq. And you can do it for the same money you're getting paid now. And you want to know how much money I made whenever I was over in Iraq? $30,000. You want to know how much the soldiers, the civilians that pumped our gas for 7 hours out of the day? Because when we would pull into the FOBs, the forward observation bases, to refuel our Humvees, the guys would be there they cut it, stay up into 3 sections, 7 hours each. They were getting $82,000 a year untaxed. $82,000 a year. And one dude I ran into actually signed up for the Army for 2 years and ended up getting kicked out 2 months after his basic training because he pissed hot for cocaine. And then when he got out of the Army, he went over to Iraq and made $82,000 tax-free. But soldiers were only getting $30,000. And that was after all our hazard duty pay, whenever we weren't getting taxes taken out. So that's just, it's sickening how much more the private contractors and them got paid, the Halliburton and the Brown and Roos. So what they would do is they would tell them, hey, you're going to get stop loss anyway. And the unit first sergeants would do this. So it wasn't like it was just a lie on like a sergeant's level. This is first sergeant and sergeant majors putting this out there and telling their commanders to do this. They would lie to the soldiers and say, you're going to get stop loss. This is when they're not getting stop loss. This is before the stop loss order came in and they're just trying to secure their numbers. They would say, you're getting stop loss anyway, but what I can do is you can re-enlist for this bonus. And the bonuses were always at least half to 75% less than what they should have been. Normally, if your second re-enlistment, once you do your second re-enlistment, your bonus, if you do 5 years, is going to be around $20,000. They were giving soldiers to re-enlist for 2 to 3 years for $1,000 or $2,000. So they were lying to soldiers about whether or not they were going to be forced to go to war so they could get more numbers and so they could not pay them as much. That's how sick this is. that they were willing to do that, and it was Army-wide they did this.